I don't know how we wanted to do the show today, I guess, for the topic of Rob Ford, but I did bring some notes, just as a heads up beforehand, because just to help with like keeping things, I guess, like on track if we wanted to go in like chronological order or whatever.
Oh, totally.
But what did you think of learning more about Rob Ford on your own, though?
Man, I'm torn. Because I mean, the two documentaries sort of are they take a very different they shine a very different light on it.
I like. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying the Orchard one. He comes off a very affable.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Trainwreck one, it's a lot. It definitely felt more like, more. I don't want to say a hit piece because it was honest, but there was definitely more.
Yeah.
We didn't have like a talking head interview, so we weren't getting people's personal opinions. Just sort of Matt Orchard's illustration.
Mm-hmm. And that's like the shortcoming of the Matt Orchard video, because obviously it doesn't cover like the whole scope of Ford, and that's the thing the Netflix documentary doesn't do well either. But the thing that I really liked about the Matt Orchard thing, and the reason I was like, you should definitely watch this, I think it does such a great job at like analyzing how he is as a language guy, and I feel like that's like such a big part of the success of him, right? I feel like politicians, it's more about the communication, right? And that's kind of what I want to get at with the larger conversation we'll get into. You asked me about like doing Canadian politics, right? So I kind of made it largely just about Canadian politics in general, but I simplified it. So I'll take you through some of the prime ministers, and then we'll get to Rob Ford, if that's okay.
No, totally. Because I also have I have curiosities about like I feel like I only know Trudeau like through like memes, basically. Like I don't actually know. Like I have an idea of like people's feelings about him. Like I feel like with Trudeau, it's like people on the right hate him. People in the center and on the far left hate him, and then liberals probably like him.
Yep. Yeah, he's pretty much like Obama incarnate, right? Like he's Canada's synthesis of doing that. We'll get into that when we get to there.
Cool.
But what I did was I like charted out like Canada as a country, what major policies have kind of shaped the social feelings, right? Like the things that kind of move people, right? Because that's essentially what this Rob Ford story is about, like how people are transfixed by charismatic people, right? So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up all of the prime ministers. It'll talk about like the policy within Canada, so then you as an American and with your American audience, you guys will get a better understanding of like where Canada is in quotations at. Then you also learn some prime ministers, because some of the prime ministers are hilarious. And it'll also like this again, it'll be quick, and then it'll get to Rob Ford, and because like there is definitely some groundwork to set for the environment in which he grew up within, you know?
You got to do the groundwork before you lay the pipe, so take as much time as you want with that. I also, before we got started, I saw an ad for Gemini the other day. I thought you might get a kick out of.
Gemini.
Gemini's AI.
That's right, Gemini. What was the ad?
So it was, man, I get the weirdest ads on YouTube the past couple years, man. Like it's kind of like when they say, well, like generational pull or whatever, like when you're scrolling through your feed or on, looking for memes or whatever. That's how I feel like my YouTube is with ads these days. I get crazy shit that I never used to see. This ad, it was just so emblematic of like, okay, this company knows they know their base, their consumer base, and their base is two brain-celled idiots, because the whole concept of the ad was just someone who like can't identify their own fingers, using AI to tell them just like what is right in front of them. Like I think the first one, She said, yeah, so a garbage truck is passing in front of her, and she asks Gemini if what kind of convertible it is. and then the second clip, she's like, who is this person following me? And the AI is just like, that is your shadow. Your shadow is comprised of, the absence of light. And
I just don't like that. You remember like when Facebook tried to market the metaverse?
Yeah.
Like with the those animatronics not being able to work at Chuck E. Cheese anymore. Do you remember that ad?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so the whole purpose of this ad was like exactly what I just said, right? Like Chuck E. Cheese goes out of business, the robots have nothing to do, right? But then the end of the commercial is they're happy because then they can hang out with their friends in the metaverse. And I'm just like, what a horrible message that is. Oh no, don't worry. Everyone's going to lose their jobs. Everything's going to move to the digital realm. But don't worry, you'll be there with your friends.
It's like the end of devs.
Oh, yes, exactly. Alex Garland. Galaxy brained to the max.
Yeah.
Nick Offerman was great in that show.
I love that show. I love that show.
It's a great show, but it broke Alex Garland. Like the run he went on after, yeah. Like I think like literally 28 years later is the only thing he's done after Devs that's actually been good in my eyes, at least.
I enjoyed Men, but I definitely would agree.
Yeah, like I think Men on the first watch, I was like, okay, where's this gonna go? And then it was like it was exactly what it set out to do in the dumbest way in my eyes, and I was just like, oh no. I can't sanction this.
My favorite part of Men was as like simple and straightforward as what it was trying to do it did. I somehow, my friend completely missed the point. He was like, oh yeah, she kind of basically was just like siding with her dead husband the whole time. Like, yeah, she kind of fucking forced him to kill himself, and she kind of sucks. He's like, yeah, women, man. We don't really talk anymore.
So sometimes those barriers, they build themselves just in how people present themselves. I get it.
Sometimes you don't know someone until you watch a very simple baseline film and they take the craziest takeaway away.
I once had a friend who watched Grizzly Man, right? Mm-hmm. And they read like a pro like Grizzly Man. They had a pro Grizzly Man take by the end of it. Like they were like, yeah, but they were right. And I'm like, are what?
Well, it's like Sterling Archer and his like his romanticization of like fucking what's that movie? The movie where they're on the swamp and then the fat guy gets raped, and it's
Deliverance.
Deliverance.
You're talking about
Deliverance. My whole childhood, I'm like, wow, Deliverance must be this really cool movie where cool things happen.
I heard there was a sick banjo scene. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I mean it is sick, but it's all downhill from there.
When I was like really young and stupid, I thought that the Deliverance that people were talking about was the Daniel Craig World War II action drama Deliverance. You ever see that one?
I have not.
No, it's just like Daniel Craig, he's in like a resistance war fighting troop against the Nazis, right? And I was just like, yeah, this movie's pretty good, but like I don't get what all the hubbub was about. And then I was like, oh shit, I was watching the wrong Deliverance.
All right, so I guess how should we?
Yeah, should we get the show on the road?
Maybe we'll do a little theme song for our guest today.
Rolo, Tony, downtown. Check yourself at the door. Give me some more. Give me some more. Give me some more on your Rolos. That's pretty good.
Oh, it's another beautiful day in the village. It's Friday, June. I'm always bad at this. 27th. It's Friday, June 27th.
Give it up for the 27th, everybody.
Oh, good old 27. Afraid of 26 because, no, never mind. 27, 8, 26. I'm nursing a really bad sunburn, and I think it's gone to my brain. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Is the sunburn on your brain flaking? Is that what's happening right now? Perhaps like the flakes are getting in the way of your capabilities, cerebrally speaking.
Nothing. I'm kind of shaking my ear like I've got water in it, and there's no flakes coming out, and my skin is not flaking yet. So I would imagine my brain has not started to flake yet either. But something.
That's good.
Something in that realm is happening.
Must be in the head and shoulders has been keeping your head flake free. You know.
I've heard that they keep your head flaky. They actually do.
Oh, really? It keeps you flaky.
It's more like your scalp. Your scalp becomes like addicted to it, and your scalp will be like even more flaky if you stop using it.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of like a money making scheme where they're like, we'll give you this hair product that you can't stop using because if you do, then your head will fall apart.
Exactly, your head will fall apart.
Yeah. But it's really good for killing aliens. That's the good thing about Head and Shoulders.
What am I missing here?
Oh, you're not familiar with the classic 2000s film Evolution?
No.
Oh, this is an excellent one. You gotta look this one up in your spare time. But David Duchovny, like Sean William Scott, it's like a Ghostbusters ripoff.
Okay.
And I'm obviously spoiling this for you, okay?
That's fine.
But the ending finale is based around these scientists understanding that the secret to killing the aliens involves the formula that's used to create Head and Shoulders.
Head and Shoulders. The dandruff shampoo? Yeah, that's the stuff. The active ingredient is selenium sulfide.
How do you know that? You don't know anything.
Haven't you noticed how shiny and flake-free our hair is?
Okay. This is the best idea we got. Let's give it a shot. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So they literally just like fill up a tanker filled with Head and Shoulders and shoot it at the aliens and kill them. And then the film ends with a direct address to camera advertisement for Head and Shoulders.
Wow. That's awesome.
It's awesome. It had its own children's animated television series.
Coming to wipe that silly smile off your planet. Wait, like an in-universe or like that spun off?
I think they were doing like a Ghostbusters thing where like they had characters from the show, from the movie, right? But it wasn't really going to be anything that means anything for any future movies if they did go down that route. But they never made any other movies and they never made any other seasons of the show. So they just exist as artifacts from the era. Speaking of which, we've got a topic that's certainly of the era.
We do. We're talking about the mayor of the people, Rob Ford.
The mayor of the Torontonian people.
Toronto.
The
Toronto, as I've been hearing all day.
Oh, you've been hearing it in the streets? People have been coming up to you?
No, just like in the two documentaries, it's always pronounced Toronto.
Right. Yes, exactly. Finally, we've got people who actually know how to pronounce Etobicoke.
Yes. Not me.
Yeah. Oh, it takes a bit of time, right? It's weirdly like it takes time to find a way to make those collection of letters make sense. I feel like there's kind of like a moment happening with Rob Ford right now with the Netflix documentary that just came out.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people are thinking about him again. I don't know. What did you know about Rob Ford before our conversation today?
Well, honestly, he had been sort of memory hold until talking about it with you. I couldn't really recall him, but I think I first heard about him on Tosh.0 actually, and really all I knew was that he was Toronto's crack smoking mayor.
And did the consideration of like people's lives ever come into your thoughts and minds when you saw the crack smoking mayor?
Did I have any sort of concern for the people of Toronto?
Yeah.
Or did I just sort of think it was hilarious and move on?
And like that's not a judgmental question, right? Like don't think I'm like it sounds more serious than it is, but like you hear that like there's a crack smoking.
I wonder if
and you're like, how do you react to that?
I wonder if at the time I even knew like how big of a place Toronto was, because I was pretty young. I feel like when the news broke, was it 2012?
Yeah, so like he was mayor from like 2010 to 2014, and the scandal of him smoking crack didn't come out until like 2013. But he was already known as like the guy who was getting trashed
for sure.
Yeah, he was already going around, and we'll get into it for sure.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't realize how he was a mayor of a large city. Like I think I just assumed he was just some small town mayor.
I think there definitely is like some kind of selective bias when it comes to perceiving Canada, I guess, right? Because Toronto is like the fourth largest like city in North America, right?
Right.
Like behind Los Angeles, like Mexico City, like New York. So like we're talking about somebody on the level of like a Zoran Mamdani, right? Everyone's talking about him right now with that mayor election coming up. I'd say that Rob Ford was in a similar bracket of importance. But his whole place in that time, he kind of represented something that was bubbling underneath, like in Canada, and it kind of boiled over into North America itself. The more that you learn about Rob Ford, the more you come to understand that he really was like the proto-Trump.
Yeah, that and I definitely see shades of that. Like you can see like there's like I think it was in the Trainwreck documentary. There's some they focused on some of his like his supporters, and it really did feel like a MAGA rally. I mean, after he was after he won his seat after his brother stepped up to run for mayor, and these two older women, they're like thanking Jesus Christ out loud after he won. And I mean, they throw around right-wing populism a lot in the documentary, and I feel like they sort of another shortcoming is I feel like I haven't exactly come away with like I feel like I know why he was liked. I don't exactly know everything about like his policies and like his beliefs. There was he definitely didn't seem to be too hip to maybe like gay people, but besides that, it almost seemed like not a conservative. But yeah, I mean, cult of personality, demonizing the media, sort of having no couth. But
just saying whatever is on his mind. He's able to read a room.
But almost, it just comes off a lot more innocent and like I said, affable than Trump, with the same lack of filter.
Maybe people have like muscle memory and they kind of saw him the same way as Chris Farley, because he was like a large guy, right, who used his physicality in such a strange way. Like he was a very nimble guy, but he still was like he was very much his size in that way, and he acted that way in his persona.
No, he very much reminded me of a Farley character.
If Chris Farley were alive today, he would definitely be still playing Rob Ford. Like even though he is dead, he is still be mining that, and he would be good. He would be fine to do it. I feel like to talk about his policies, you kind of have to like understand where Canada was, right? Like how Canada came to be that way, right?
Sure.
And like when it comes to Canadian politics in general, like your perspective as an American, like what do you think about Canadian politics? What differences do you see, if any?
I think I see like differences. I think there's maybe like a liberal sheen of niceness and politeness that I think has been very slowly etched away over here. that you guys still maintain. How you might feel about that that gilded niceness is up to you, but I definitely see like a similar chauvinism, when I see like there was the Canadian trucker movement. I see a lot of that, but when you say what do I think of Canadian politics, and this is I think why I am actually interested for once, is because I feel like from my perspective, y'all are way too interested in our politics. And
exactly.
Exactly.
Now we're finally getting to it, right?
Yes.
This is the answer I was looking for.
Well, yeah, I feel like it's hard for me to take interest when every time I do come across a Canadian talking about politics, they're talking about politics in my country, and it's always a conservative grifter.
You mean a conservative grifter who's talking about American politics from the perspective of supporting American politics? Or do you mean like somebody from Canada who is talking about a conservative?
Right. Yeah, the first one, like a Stephen Crowder, for instance.
Got it. Yes. Oh, totally. We outsource all of our worst people, yes. For sure. Like that's what we did with Crowder. We did with Dave Rubin. When it comes to like Canadian politics, we are totally obsessed with America and wanting to be like America and follow American tradition, right?
Right.
And I feel like a great way to kind of start at this and to kind of get a better understanding of how like a Rob Ford can happen is like back in like 1989, Brian Mulroney was prime minister, right? He was like our Reagan era conservative, right? He was fairly he was like what you would expect from like Margaret Thatcher, Reagan era, just for Canada, right? Mm-hmm. He was actually fairly progressive when it came to recognizing apartheid in South Africa. Canada was the first place that Nelson Mandela came to visit after he came out of jail. So that's good bonus points for us there, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that like we should flag for Brian Mulroney is that he became prime minister. He took away the victory of the NDP leadership under Ed Broadbent, right? So NDP, do you know anything about them in terms of Canadian politics?
I do not.
So in America, you guys only have two parties, right?
Right.
Canada, we have many parties. And when I say many parties, I don't mean like countless. I mean like there are only like three major parties, and then there are a few other parties that create some ground as well. NDP is like our more left than liberal party, right? And we have not had an NDP leader in so long, right? And Ed Broadbent was the last time that we almost had an NDP leader, but instead we got the Conservative, right? Mm-hmm. And the Conservative did not do well at all. He actually resigned into his second term, despite getting a majority win for both terms. But instead, we elected Jean Chrétien. Have you ever heard of Jean Chrétien?
I have not.
So he was able to keep Canada together, right? So Quebec wanted to separate from Canada. Quebec wanted to become its own country. You may have heard about this before. It's one of the funnier things that keeps happening. That we actually have an entire political party called the Bloc Québécois that is entirely designed around wanting to separate Quebec from the rest of the country. And a lot of people in like...
will rise again.
It's essentially that. It is essentially that. But like the thing is like there have definitely been like French persecution in the past. There is that whole thing, right? But at the same time, it's a lot of like people getting upset over small things. It's a blue collar issue that is, in the grand scheme of things, not so important. And it, like, unless like you're like really committed to doing the separation thing, I don't see the value in it. But anyways, Jean Chrétien, he stops Quebec from separating, right? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, as I said with Brian Mulroney, he did actually, I'm not sure if I even said this, so forgive me if I didn't. Essentially, free trade with America started under Brian Mulroney.
Okay.
And this essentially started the deindustrialization of Canada, which moved us into a neoliberal realm similar to America. And Jean Chrétien was in power from 1993 to 2003. So essentially, he was our Bill Clinton era prime minister. And very similar to Bill Clinton, he did a lot of Bill Clinton-y things to continue to further the free market. Lots of jobs were cut, right? He prevented recession from happening. Essentially, we would be like Greece right now if it weren't for Jacques Chrétien doing what he did. And something that's important for all politicians, he was feisty. He's well known for actually grabbing a protester by the throat and throwing them onto the ground with the Shawnigan handshake.
Yeah.
It's a very famous event in Jacques Chrétien's time where he actually threw somebody on the ground. But the thing is, we like our characters too, right? He was somebody who was identifiable, right? And though he was a liberal following up a conservative, the people on both sides of the aisle liked him because he was a loud, outspoken leader. I should also say that between Mulroney and Chrétien, we had our first and only female prime minister, Kim Campbell, but she was prime minister for less than a year, so that's why I quickly skipped over.
Gotcha.
But when it comes to Jacques Chrétien, he was the prime minister during 9/11. When 9/11 happened, he sent some troops to help out with Afghanistan when that invasion first started. But then slowly afterwards, he pulled back from wanting to be so aggressively pro-Iraq war and all of that. Matter of fact, Jacques Chrétien did not enter Canada into the Iraq war. And for a while, Canada was defunding their military more than actually funding it, which is something that many people may know about Canada, and it comes from that partially. But anyways, he left. Then we got Paul Martin, who was another liberal, but similar to Campbell, he wasn't there for long, but he was there for longer. He was there for 3 years. Instead, we got our own version of George W. Bush, which was Stephen Harper, who unfortunately was also kind of squishy, similar to Paul Martin. And when I say squishy, I mean they're kind of inoffensive. They're kind of like, squeaky clean, inoffensive. They're not like going to do or say anything that rocks the boat, but they're going to still do things. Exactly, yes. And Stephen Harper, he was prime minister from like 2006 to 2015. And that covers the time in which Rob Ford was prime minister. And the reason that it's important to cover all of these characters was because, like Jacques Chrétien, he's often regarded as one of the most important prime ministers ever, right? He's given like a lot of praise, right? And I feel like a lot of it is to do with his character. He was someone who was very feisty and outspoken beyond the policies that he did. And that's why he still lingers in the minds of people. But also on top of that, he very much so pushed this like neoliberal agenda of like, deregulations of things to, keep moving forward for capitalist sake, right? This is something that has slowly infected Canada itself, right? First it came for America with Reagan, then it came to Canada, right? And the reason that Canada is so obsessed with American politics is because we, as people, kind of obviously can understand that we just get your things a little late, right? But Rob Ford is an instance where we got something a bit early, right? Rob Ford came about because he was the fail son of somebody also named Ford. He came from the Ford family, not, the car manufacturer Ford. But his father was also a politician, and he was also a football player. So naturally, like Rob Ford was a football coach because he couldn't play football, and he became a politician. And nobody really believed in his abilities as a council member, let alone anything more than that, right? And I think the documentary gets into that a bit as well, but I think that it's pretty on its face understandable why Rob Ford doesn't really fit into the larger hoity-toity government politics kind of realm. And I think it's because he's just kind of a stupid dullard.
Yeah.
He doesn't really earn anything that puts him to the position that he's in. And when he's there, he doesn't really know what he's doing there, right? He kind of just seems like a scared child, which, as somebody who's watching from afar, you can be endeared to the deer in the headlights routine.
Right.
But at the same time, this is not a victimless crime. He is doing this to himself. But anyways, he, before he rose to prominence, he had some things stemming back to 1999. He got arrested for DUI and marijuana possession in Florida. And he was never really a good husband. He was somebody who was often getting like domestic disturbance calls on him, like in the early days all the way up until like the later days that we'll talk about, right? So he was never really a good husband. And when it came to the jump to larger politics, they touched a bit of it on the documentary, but do you like know what his competitive edge was really?
His brother?
Great addition. His brother was actually kind of riding his coattails to start, which is wild to think about. He was the more legitimate
figure of the two. It seemed like he gave Rob legitimacy.
I would argue this is where like some revisionist history is coming into play with the Netflix documentary, right? Because we know where Doug is now, right? And Doug, he's an important figure in Canadian politics. My guess is they did not want to tarnish his legacy in any way. But if you were to ask me, I would say that Doug was kind of along with Rob for the ride, right? Okay. He was somebody who was like very commercially speaking, a well-seasoned politician, right? If you ever hear Doug talk, it's very clear why people support him. But at the same time, you know, it's classic politician stuff, right?
Yeah.
When you hear Rob Ford talk, right, he is saying things that like no politician should say, not just out of like bad taste, but like the way that he phrases things, it's a lot more casual and conversational. He definitely seems like somebody who cares about the individual, which is strange, because like when you see his conversation,
that really endeared me to him.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. And part of what people were endeared to him from was the one-to-one work he would do with people. Like the idea that his work on council before he became mayor and then after he became mayor involved listening to the concerns of Torontonians, writing them down on Post-it notes, and then personally dealing with it either himself or through contractors. Did you hear about this?
Yeah. Like coming out to, someone had a downed tree in their yard and he came out to inspect it himself, or what was another example? But yeah, no, I mean, he would take calls from the people and he'd go out and assess the problem himself, and according to them, you know, he got shit done or mediated some sort of compromise if necessary. But he was on the ground.
And like I think that right there was something that gave him a competitive advantage when it came to his perception as a political figure, right? Because the number one thing with any politician is people want somebody who's going to make changes for everyone else, right? In a material sense. And when it comes to your typical aristocrat, right, they're obviously going to tell you that there's going to be some compromises necessary for happiness, which is not the answer you want, right? When you've got this like big dude coming in saying like, hey, don't worry, I'll cut down your trees for you, and I'm going to, lower your taxes, you're going to be like, this guy's great. So like, I think that the word of mouth that just doing something like that alone really helped solidify the myth of Rob Ford. Even though policy-wise, he wasn't doing anything that was super like boundary pushing.
Right.
Like, okay, at the time that Rob was running for mayor, right? Like, I think they touch about this a bit during the Netflix doc. But there was this whole trash crisis. Did you remember hearing about this? Yeah.
That was at the very beginning of it. Yeah.
Rob Ford's whole thing,
it was his problem, and Rob sort of inherited it and sort of got a better PR boost from it than the previous mayor.
Exactly, because he was able to come in, and part of what he was able to do was to create privatization for the trash collectors, right? Lovely. And now it's like we're kicking the can down the curb, right? Where landfills are going to become a major issue like in 10 years, right? The trash crisis has not been averted. It's just gotten prolonged, right? And when it comes to, this idea of privatization within like the Ford mindset, right? Like this is something that like the Ford brothers have been looking to do within Ontario as like their larger scheme, right? Like Doug Ford would really love to make healthcare privatized. That's something that the Conservatives really want to do in Canada. It's kind of like our abortion, where like a lot of the Conservatives just want to do that, and they'll say a lot of things like, "Oh, the waiting rooms are so long. You're going to spend your whole day."
My dad's whole thing about deterring being against the public health option was like, yeah, well, because they always said, in Canada, free healthcare. It's like, yeah, but did you know that you're waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks to get simple things done?
It's so ridiculous to me when there's a show like The Pit on television, right? Which is American healthcare, right? And it goes to show that it's like the exact same process. If we're talking about emergency room healthcare, which is what people are usually talking about too with Canadian healthcare, mind you. Let's say you're going into the emergency room and you're waiting for someone to help you out. It's going to take some time. Like, it's going to take time regardless. And if we're going to talk about wait times that involve like shortages of staff, whatever, these are things that usually come down to the owners of these hospitals. It's a larger conversation.
They're run as businesses.
Exactly, right. And the further privatization of this thing that was once considered a public good is something that I see as antithetical to being Canadian, right? Because that's something that we do here. We have a bit more socialism. Right? It's part of the quotations niceness that we're accounted for, is that some of our goods are taken care of, right? And the conservative movement in Canada only seems to really understand copying the conservatives in America.
Sorry, I was gonna say that just seems to me almost like you've caught our sickness. Like, you have this you have this system where you're admired for it, and the only people that talk shit about it are your neighbors to the south, and it's almost like that our anti-healthcare, anti-Canadian propaganda has sort of just drifted in over the air over to you guys and infected, whomever.
I think it's part and parcel with like what's happened with the past of Canada and how it's relating to how things are shaking out right now, right? Because we're watching in real time the death of neoliberalism, right? With the way that the world is shaping out, right? Despite like the years and decades in which both Canada and America has built this up as the predominant ideology. Would you agree?
The neoliberalism.
Yes.
Yes.
Would you agree that? Yeah. So, when it comes to, where we are, where our place in the world geopolitically, right? We see what America's doing right now with Trump, right? And we're like, oh no, we can't do that, right? And you're seeing the conservatives trying to pivot away. But the blueprint was littered by Trump. But again, to bring it back to Rob Ford, he kind of set the blueprints, right?
Right.
And the way and like he wasn't somebody who won his mayoral race in a crazy landslide, right? He won 40% versus 30. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And there were 3 people who were considered for like the major spots. And the person who was in the mayor spot before him wasn't very popular. The Liberal candidate, he wasn't very popular either. He was more a center-right party person. Something that's very common now with a lot of our Liberals. Our Liberals are actually a lot more conservative than they let on, including Mark Carney, who we'll get to. But when it comes to Ford getting into office, like his main saying was "stop the gravy train," and he was all about like trying to, cut back on government expenditures. And there were some things that you're like, okay, that's admirable. Things like we watched that Matt Orchard video where he stopped a lot of like perks for council members. And I think that like a move like that, how much money are they actually going to be saving from doing that, right? You're not saving a ton of cash, but
it looks nice when you're pointing to all these things. But when you add it all up, it's sort of like less than the total of its parts.
Yeah, like how much do you really think like a day pass for the zoo all year round is going to cost the zoo in the long run? But funny enough that I should bring up the zoo. One of the things that Rob Ford did was he made some of those things privatized. Similarly, the zoo was one of them. It used to be partially run by the government of Toronto, but it wasn't anymore. That's kind of like most of the major things that he was doing. He was like cutting back on what was there. He was cutting jobs, all in the name of not raising taxes and, not affecting customers in any of like the classic visible ways, right? Like
I'm seeing
raising
the
taxes
playbook here. Yeah.
Exactly. And for like the
aesthetically
first
doing
year of
things
his
that-
mayoral race, he was right.
Yeah.
Because he didn't, his budget did not go over like what, like it actually what was, his budget was successful for the first year, right? In all of his cutting. So on paper, he was doing everything that people would want from him, right? So that's where his public image was aided, right? He had these people who were on the ground supportive of him because of those things that he was doing for them there. And then in this nebulous political sense, he was getting that W for them. Even if you and I know that that's ultimately meaningless, right? If he's cutting public services, if he's making things generally speaking harder to like live in Toronto, then it's not good. Another big thing about him was that he cut this long planned idea of the transit plan in Toronto, right? He cut it because he wanted to put forth his own plan for a subway extension in Scarborough, right?
Little Musk sprinkled in.
Right? But then after he gets his plan approved, all of the crack stuff happens. They diminish his powers. They cut back his Scarborough plan. And so for like a solid 6 years, transit development in Toronto was like almost completely halted. like no major like line change things came down the pipeline. No subway extensions were made. Which is like that's like Toronto definitely doesn't have the level of New York. Not as many lines, not as many connectivity, but we definitely have plans to do that, right? And that's just so funny to see a mayor from like 10 years ago ruining the plans of progress, and it's had ramifications decades later. But yeah, when it comes to other things with this like era of Rob Ford, he was still like partying out in public. You heard about his St. Patrick's Day thing where he was caught out in public flailing around.
With Miss Canada or whatever.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, ridiculous! And
what was the rest? It doesn't matter.
he was known for smoking weed in public as well, which I can't really blame him. Smoking a joint, why not?
Yeah.
Like he was ahead of the curve on that front.
Definitely.
But like everyone kind of knew that he was sketchy, and the fact that he was able to move in the way he did, it spelled corruption. Would you agree?
Like the fact that he was able to, you say? Like there was
because he
must have been.
He was just like openly doing all of these things. He was completely intoxicated all the time, right?
So
like
there was more broad corruption surrounding him that allowed someone like him to get away with what he got away with for so long.
I feel like there was like a self-serving factor from like the people who didn't like him, right? They wanted to put on a happy face, right? To be like, oh, we still mean something, right? So they were still covering for him in that sense, right? But Rob Ford, he just was taking this as like a free ride. He was just able to do whatever he wanted throughout this entire period.
Right.
And that's what he did. And like people within his like close circle, they were still telling him he had a problem and stuff, but he was ignoring them, of course, right? Why would he listen to them? And it's, that could also just be people like in retrospect covering their asses. When they have their own gravy train going on, why would they tell it to stop? You know what I mean?
Right. It almost kind of sounds like a few different characters wrapped into one. You got Trump, you got Musk with the halting of transit plans, and then sort of with the fail son drug aspect, it's almost kind of like Hunter Biden.
Oh, he is a lightning rod of all of these characters.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct.
Trailblazer.
Now, one of my favorite things that Rob Ford would do as a mayor, and this is bipartisan. I feel like we can all agree on this.
Okay.
So at the end of like seasons, right, when there were like parts where there would be extended recesses between the council, what he would do is he would hire like reggae performers to play in the council hall. Have you seen these videos?
No, but I'm not surprised.
So he would totally have like these reggae performers playing in town hall, and he was just dancing up a storm. He was dancing up with all of his haters too. You can see him like locking arms and hands with them, just like dancing around, and he would always get like rave reviews for this. Like the council genuinely liked doing this, so he kept doing it. I just find this really funny. And he also declared that February 6th was Bob Marley Day.
Hell yeah.
He was a big fan of the Jamaican community, as we'll get into later.
Yeah.
We kind of like the racism allegations have been lauded at Rob Ford, and I think that it's totally true, right?
Yeah.
I think he is racist. I'm not sure if you heard what he said about Asian people. Have you heard what he said about them or no?
No.
So he said something to the effect of like, oh, they work like dogs, right? He was talking about like their work ethic in relation to immigrant labor, right? And you read it and you're just like, oh, this is like stupid, ignorant talk of like, these are immigrant workers that get exploited, but they do such a good job, you know?
Sort of like a Kelly Osbourne slip up.
Yeah, but also at the same time, like it slip up, but also like not good. You know what I mean?
Right.
When it comes to his relationship with like other minority groups within Toronto, you come to quickly find that like he really didn't care about like where people's backgrounds were and stuff. He kind of really did hang out with everyone, which is really, really funny and endearing.
That's what I got from it. He gets along with people from marginalized communities. He's very agreeable in that way. But I got sort of like a very, very 2000s, 2010s liberal, I don't see color sort of racist attitude.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. He is totally like, I do not see race ass person.
Yeah. And strive for the minorities every day.
Oh yeah. I don't protest. I just don't have time to protest. Yeah. That's the problem. But there was his football team loved him as well. Everyone on the football team said he was a great coach, despite he himself not being a good football player. He would often like pay for equipment replacements for the team. Seemed like a genuinely good influence on these kids in that sense. Who knows if he's talking about policy? Maybe not. But
interpersonally, like people would say a lot, he was good.
It seemed like if you were cool with Rob Ford, he was cool with you, and if you crossed him, then he was a stupid idiot about being And like it's such a corny, juvenile way of operating, and I feel like that's a great way of summing up Rob Ford himself. Now, like before we get into like the crack scandal itself, like. Can we just talk about how weird it is he was smoking crack itself?
I mean, even if he was like smoking, like let's say he had a little crack thing going. Like, as a politician, you'd think you'd be like discreet, getting it from a trusted source, going and smoking crack alone by yourself, not just meeting up with some homies from high school in a hotel room and getting tweaked.
Not even homies from high school. Like literal gang affiliated. Oh, one of them was. Yeah, but like they're like literally like gang affiliated people.
Well, that's one thing. The Dixon City Bloods.
Yep.
I wrote down Dixon Shitty Butts.
Hey, that'll show us.
But speaking of that, since we're on the topic, with the patois and the crack. The video of him in the restaurant.
Oh my God!
He's absolutely on crack there, right? I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right.
No. Let's do it because that's my favorite video. That like him and Steak Queen doing the patois is like one of the funniest things anyone has ever.
In another life, he could have been one of these white boys on TikTok, just rizzing people up with patois on the street. Being in a music video with
TikTok Live doing like. He could be like doing TikTok battles, right? With like, I don't know who famous TikTokers are now anymore, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Just like shouting,
We're getting old.
But I feel like the Steak Queen one, it's like the same energy or magic, I guess you could describe from Meet Joe Black, where Brad Pitt speaks patois.
Oh my God!
Where it's like you can't. You can't stop this guy's swag. He is just doing it.
But
and he shouldn't.
He's
but he's
unintelligible in the same way that he is in the crack smoking videos, where you see him smoking crack. Like he's skipping over his own words, and yeah, I don't know. But then his bodyguard describes his patois almost as being fully legible, and like they were having banter back and forth all the time. So he had to be on crack in that video.
Well, I totally agree with you that he was smoking crack all the time. like that is a guy, like how red his face was, the things he did, right? The things he said. We'll get to the things he said.
I'm kind of looking like him right now, honestly.
You said you're looking like him right now?
With the sunburn, is that what you just said? With the sunburn, you know.
Oh, yes, that's right. Your scalp is hopefully it's not doing the same hairline thing.
Oh,
you know, jeez Louise. That's where Doug has him beat for sure. Doug has no riz, right? Doug has no swag, but Rob Ford had the worst hairline for sure. But when it comes to his drug use, I totally feel like he was on crack all the time, 24/7. And when it came to his patois, I feel like he's one of those guys that code switches, right? Like he's around like different groups of people, right? He speaks in different ways, and for whatever reason, like no one tells him to stop.
He's a goofy owl white boy.
Yeah, he's quirked up with the sauce.
Yes, quirked up. Yes. And that would get you invited to the cookout in those days.
You know what? If Rob Ford were to do that right now, I still think he would get invited to the cookout. I think that people still love that shit.
I think we've turned a corner and we're back in it.
We are, for sure. like I feel like we've already talked about the TikTok sensations that do that, right? I feel like again, going back to what we were saying about like his racism, right? I don't think that he's being racist knowingly.
Right.
I think he's totally.
It's that liberal racism that we talk about. Yes.
Yeah.
He's in his heart, he's got good intentions. But he just doesn't.
He's doing it out of love, 100%. And I think that's what makes it so endearing. I think that's what makes that video the best, because like I think like the best comedic situations are people who are well-intentioned, right? And I think he's trying to relate to this guy. Like he sounds fed up. He doesn't sound angry like in the one where he's talking about fighting.
It's pure. It's genuine.
Yeah,
he is ranting in patois, and he's genuinely just venting.
It's so like human. It's human in a way that and that's where. I think Rob Ford.
That's where he stands apart from Trump, in my opinion. He's much more human.
Because like Trump, he definitely masks his true opinions all the time, right? Because he's got bruised ego alert, right? When Rob Ford was sad, he would throw a hissy fit, and you would watch him throw the hissy fit, and I think that people liked watching the hissy fit.
Oh yeah, what the hand gestures, and he's freaking out in the council room. Just almost, I don't know, seizing almost.
Talk about this crack. We got to talk about the crack video,
all right?
Because like the existence of the crack video itself, right? That when originally it was announced that it existed, right? They went to Rob Ford himself and they asked for $150,000. First off, baller, right? Put on them, right? I do not blame them at all for asking for that much money.
You got to right? It's your one opportunity. You got to shoot for the stars.
Right? Like
you got to negotiate high. You got to start high.
Do not sell yourself short in this life. You will never succeed if that's your mentality. Exactly. And I love the fact that Rob Ford's follow-up was $5,000 and a car.
And a car.
And a car.
But
and you know what?
Yeah.
Like, would you take that if you had that video?
Hell yes. Hell yes. I mean, I guess it depends on the car, but unless it's like a junker, then yeah.
If you're giving me a Ford Pinto, it's no deal, right? But if you're giving me like a mid 2000s Mustang, why not? Done. Easy money. What video? I don't remember it.
Rob Ford is never smoked crack a day in his life. Never hear anything different out of me.
Now, like, the thing I love is how these crack videographers, right? I love how they're kind of like Coen brother characters, right? Where they kind of drift from like realm to realm, trying to get their point across, but they fail in every regard, right? Because they try to sell it to the Toronto Star first, and like no one wanted to buy this video. It's not normal for like press to buy videos, and the same deal with Gawker, right? And like the Gawker, they decided to put up like a Kickstarter for it, right? To buy the video from these guys, right? And you know they actually made the money, right?
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, so they actually made the $200,000, but they still didn't get the video.
Oh my god!
So they just donated all the money. So it's like there was this big desire.
Want to give it, or
it was around the same time that like the cops were getting involved with these guys because these guys got tied up in a raid.
Too hot.
Yeah, so like we're skipping ahead a little bit. So to quickly go back a bit, right? Like Rob Ford, he completely denied the existence of the video and denied his like ever of smoking crack, right? Which like on the outset, right? Like before seeing this video of him smoking crack, do you think that he smoked crack?
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure, right? Like he totally seems like a crack smoking guy.
You take one look at it and you say, "Hey, do you think this mayor would smoke crack?" Not even has he. Would he? Yeah, totally. He'd try anything once.
You could tell that he's. I feel like you could tell that he smokes crack just by like reading his blood pressure.
Yeah.
You take him to like one of those machines in like a pharmacy, right? You put his arm in there. It's game over for him.
Dude, in that video, the first video of him smoking crack, I mean, he looks like he's about to burst, like he's filled with pressure.
You know what he looks like? He like I'm definitely not body shaming Rob Ford. I have to say we've definitely talked about the size of Rob Ford. I gotta say right now, obviously, no harm to the plus size people out there, but at the same time, this man was rotund. This was a roly poly ass motherfucker.
Yeah,
he looked like the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when that one girl turns into a blueberry. He looks like
her dad. He looks like her dad. They got the same teeth.
Oh yeah, ghastly teeth on that guy too. I gotta say,
another sign that points to crack smoking.
100%. All of the fucking calcium in his fucking face is disappearing. Oh my god! And you know, talking about the drug of choice again. To get back to that, you know, like I feel like there are definitely like rich people drugs he could have gotten into, right? Like I've even heard of like Lady Gaga smoking meth. You know, maybe go the meth route. I feel like crack cocaine, so classless. You know,
well,
come on.
No one's done meth until you ask if they've done Molly, and then everyone's done meth.
There you go. That's what it is. Maybe he did Molly. I could see him being a Molly guy.
I could see him rolling, man. Oh man, I could see him
100%.
just feeling himself, just stroking
to Carnival.
The furry wall. Say what?
Goes to Carnival. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, he would tear it up there.
Oh yeah, he would. I could see him with some beads.
Mm-hmm. The idea of him like denying the crack smoking video's existence, it makes sense on its face, right? But I feel like
you have to.
In the public's eyes, everyone knew what was coming, right? Like it was something that like we all knew that this probably was something that was real, but it was so absurd that nobody really wanted to acknowledge it that way, right? But slowly behind the scenes, like the cops, they raided the drug dealers, right? They came into contact of the video, and then like the cops announced that they had the video, right? And Rob Ford is just like, yeah, release it. I want to see it, right? What cojones this guy has to do that, right?
I love
like,
when
what do you think about him?
Do you guys remember the question that you asked me back in May? Smoke crack? Exactly. No, I kind of, but that's exactly the question that I was looking for. I may have only once, at least a year ago.
What? Maybe in one of my drunken stupors.
It could have happened.
That line right there was written on every newspaper. Drunken stupor. They were like that, and honestly, that's a great excuse, right? Like, hey, come on.
I didn't
Rolo
smoke
Tony,
crack.
why?
Drunk Rob smoked crack. Blame him.
Rolo Tony, you say you don't. Rolo, Tony, you say you don't smoke cigarettes. Why are you smoking cigarettes right now? I think I was in one of my drunken stupors. You know, I had to have a cigarette.
We all know how that is. No,
Yeah.
I don't smoke cigarettes either, but anyone around me smoking a cigarette and I've got 2 drinks in me, I'm asking for a cigarette.
You're tugging at their shirt, you know? You're like, hey, come on, give me the cigarette.
You know, I was the mayor of Toronto.
Hey. Honestly, I imagine that there are a lot of people who had interactions with Rob Ford in the street where he's like trying to light his joint, you know? And he's like, hey, you got a light on you? Hey, you got a light? Can I
got a light?
He was one of those guys. Someone that you would encounter at like a bus stop. Exactly. He was a dream out of David Lynch's mind.
Oh, speaking of which, when they show the picture, we're going back just a bit, but when they show the picture of him from 99 from his DUI, I don't know why, but he looks like a bloated version of the fake Mountie from season 2 of Twin Peaks. Just no mustache. I don't know why. That's just what came to me.
There is a Lynchian quality to Rob Ford.
Now, which lodge would he be from?
I feel like he would be in the pink room. He would just be like loud music playing, strobe lights going around. He's just drinking beers. He's just in the room he's like, this is a different filmmaker obviously, but he's kind of like the evil version of Philip Seymour Hoffman's character from Along Came Polly.
Okay.
just like no sense of self. That's what it is. And obviously his substance abuse, it's like we're obviously making jokes about it, but it's a sad situation, you know. This guy was just like pushing himself to the edge, right? And he was like in the press going, "Oh no, I'm fine," right? Meanwhile, video after video comes out, and the original video that all of this like hullabaloo started from, right? Mm-hmm. The one that like these guys who had were trying to sell it, right? That wasn't even the first crack video that hit the timeline. That wasn't even the first one that people saw. It was the second leak that came out before the first leak. Did you know that?
The hotel room was not the first?
Yeah.
No,
it was the second one. The second one was the first one was released. I think this.
Oh yes. The one where he's talking about how he needs 15 minutes to beat someone's ass.
Oh, that. See, now we're getting our videos confused.
Okay.
That's that one. He wasn't even smoking crack. The one where he was threatening to fight someone. He was alone. Sorry, not alone. He was sober in parentheses. You know, like he didn't see anything happen.
Right.
There was the one. You know, where he smokes crack initially and he's trash talking someone else. Right. That's the one where he says something along the lines like, "Oh, I love the communities." What communities you say? So that was the one that came out after, right? The second one, the one that like cemented it. You remember that one? The one that was kind of like shot in a darker room?
Yeah, I remember the stills from it because that was the one where they sold pictures, right?
Yeah, I think the one that you're thinking of that they sold pictures from was the first one. That one, right?
Okay.
Was not released until after his death.
Oh, so okay. They were the first video that was threatened to be released was not the first one that was released.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, like, and that was the hotel.
Exactly. And the we only knew at the time that the video existed.
Right.
So when the second video came out, right, the one that was not in police custody, right? Imagine that surprise, right?
Right.
Where we only had the idea of a crack smoking video in possession of the police, right? But then a second video comes out before the first video.
And that one's shot like almost like from like below him, like it's very low angle.
Yes. Exactly. Okay. Yes. Okay. So that was the time when he admitted that he smoked crack.
Right.
It was not after the people in the police had announced that they had the video, right? When he was saying like, "Oh,
I can't speak on a video that I don't know about and may not even exist." Expert spin. It's not graceful spin, but it's still very expert level spin.
It's very like it's not wrong, but if I did do it, then it wasn't that big of a deal.
Exactly.
Kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
He's cushioning himself before the fallout even comes, and like all around this time frame, there's the whole. There was the one where he used the colorful language. I want to pull up the exact quote.
I didn't smoke crack, but if I did, it'd probably be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, so you remember what he said about Olivia Gondek?
Oh yes, I've got that written down. Quotable potables, Zalek.
I think that what he said about Olivia Gondek is the lasting phrase of Rob Ford's political career. like when you think about Rob Ford, like the crack smoking thing's probably what you think about first. Mm-hmm. But when you think about quotes, this is the quote that people remember him for.
I've got plenty of home.
Exact. Like he gets threatened of propositioning another woman for sex, and he responds by saying he has plenty to eat at home. No matter how you slice it, that's baller in my books. Mm-hmm. Like, don't you agree?
Oh
like,
yeah,
come on.
No, the "we are not worthy" edit in the Orchard video is perfect.
Right?
It's like, just, I mean, you gotta give it to him. You gotta give him props. It was a complete mic drop too. He left the fucking room after saying that shit. And
you can't stay there. Imagine trying to answer for that.
The whole room erupted. They were like, "You can't say that."
In the fallout of that, there were so many articles that were just like exactly that, the pearl clutching, like, "Oh no, you can't." But the thing is like that's the kind of language that the people like. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that gets you like notoriety,
being grabbed
right?
by the pussy type shit. Except honestly, way more palatable, way more palatable, way more human. He's not talking about grabbing some random pussy. He's talking about going down on his lovely wife.
That's kind of a selfless act, you know. Mm-hmm. If you're bragging about eating out somebody, you know, you're kind of seen as a hero, and rightfully so, because like we got to look out for our ladies, you know.
Got to look out.
You can't be neglecting. Can't neglect. It costs more to eat in than to eat out. Is all I'm saying.
Another quote from when he's denying the videos, though, that I had to write down because it was just so good. It is most unfortunate that my colleagues and the great people of this city have been exposed to the fact that I've been judged by the media without any evidence. I mean, come on, man. Like,
it is just that is like mad that your mom says it's bedtime behavior.
Like, listen, I don't even know what to compare it to. It's just so fucking good.
It's like baby shit while also being like expertly worded in a way that like people who are too stupid to understand do not pick up, you know?
It's like an extra step to like I'm sorry to the people who like chose to be offended. Oh, I'm sorry if you were offended. Yeah. Same totally, type of shit.
100%. Unfortunately, this was like the era in which he became like internationally renowned was for shit like this, right?
Right.
Like after right after like the first video was confirmed to exist, and right after the second video came out, he was going on like CNN. He went on Fox. He was on Jimmy Kimmel, right? Like people got mad at Jimmy Fallon for having Trump on. Rob Ford was on Jimmy Kimmel, which I got to be honest with you, Rob Ford was a natural. He knew how to work the crowd. You know, did you ever see him on Jimmy Kimmel?
I saw a clip of Jimmy talking about him, and it seemed like he was talking to him, but I couldn't tell if he was actually on the show or not.
Oh yeah, he totally was, and like, you know Jimmy Kimmel, right? He's kind of like a liberal now, right?
Yeah, Kimmel was kind of like a liberal chauvinist back in the day, and now he's, you know, a lot more PC now that he's, you know, I don't know, probably the biggest late night talk show host. I don't know, but
I guess he's kind of like the most respectable, right? Like, I feel like out of the late night shows, he's the one who's keeping like the Letterman spirit closest alive. Which it pains me to say. You know?
Like I find him cringy a lot, but yeah, of the choices, you know, no more Conan. Yeah. Oftentimes he does, even when he's, you know, lived up or whatever, he does seem to, you know, he still kind of, you know, tells it like it is, sort of, you know, he can be spicy or whatever the fuck. But yeah, I don't hate him like a lot of people hate him, but you know.
Yeah, for me, like, analyzing his place in this Rob Ford story, right? Like, I feel like back in the day, he was big friends with Adam Carolla, right? Like, they did the Man Show. You ever see the Man Show?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is the work of conservatives, if I've ever seen one, right? And you know, I feel like there was a metamorphosis where Jimmy Kimmel slowly turned into a resistance lib, right? And I feel like the Rob Ford like his appearance was you know, in between. It was kind of like where he was still kind of flirting with conservative, right?
Okay.
But he was still largely liberal. And I say that because, in my view, I think Jimmy Kimmel would have had Rob Ford on for many years to come. I think that Rob Ford was being geared up as a regular.
You could have replaced Guillermo.
Honestly, he probably could have. Like,
actually, no, don't even replace him. Have them both. You know, Guillermo, like at the Emmys, like he goes around with like tequila shots. Just have Rob doing the same thing, but with crack.
Have Rob trying to catch footballs. You know, just throw footballs at him and see if he can catch them, because we know he can't.
Tumbles into women on the red carpet.
Speaking of tumbling into women, there's that infamous video of him running into council member Pam McConnell. I think they show it in the Netflix documentary. You've seen that, right?
They alluded to it in the Orchard video, but they show the whole thing in the Netflix documentary. He took her like 5 feet.
he took her to the ground and then brought her right back up and then ran away.
He sort of brushed her shoulder. You're good. All right, bye.
Like, I don't think I've ever ran that hard about anything anyone's ever said about me.
Yeah.
You know, like what do you think he heard that made him run across the room and knock a woman over? That is insane behavior.
I don't think you do go down, Rob.
I am a generous lover. Like, he's just
I love to eat in every sense of the word. Don't you dare accuse me of not eating.
I know my beef. I was at Steak Queen. Oh my God, what a ridiculous person. He owned it all, though. Like, the fact that he was able to sell, like, bobbleheads that were labeled the crack-smoking mayor, you know?
Oh, I didn't catch that part.
Yeah, they were literally called, like, Rob Ford, the crack-smoking mayor bobbleheads. Like, they were cashing in. That is something that, like, I imagine the secondhand market is going nuts for. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to check eBay right now.
I'm already ahead of you.
Rob Ford, crack smoking mayor.
$100 on the low end.
Head. Oh no!
I see one for $76, but with shipping.
Yeah, you know what?
$100.
You know what? Like, I'm not. I thought this would be more. He's kind of washed.
Yeah.
He could be pulling in more dollars than this. You know, this kind of reminds me. I've got an uncle who's got a first issue pressing of Captain Canuck, the Canadian version of Captain America. Right? Okay. He still can't get a good price for that.
Damn.
You know, that's how washed Canada is.
Yeah. Wow. Holy shit. Oh, now we're not even. This is Rob Dibble. We're not even on Rob Ford anymore. Rob Gronkowski.
You've advanced to new levels of bobblehead.
Got a T-shirt, Rob Ford for mayor. $50 for a T-shirt.
Do any of his T-shirts reference cunnilingus?
No, but they should. Rob Ford,
I feel
mayor you can trust to go down. To go down with the ship. Something like that.
Will you elect someone else? No, I've got plenty to eat at home. Re-elect Rob Ford.
Wow. Hey, free shipping from the United States. Hey, we got one.
On eBay?
Yeah.
hey, I stay away from eBay as a Canadian because there are so many American shipping, things. It's just never worth it in that regard.
Well,
so,
yeah, they're affordable.
The thing with Rob Ford, like, and all of his drug scandal, right? It really didn't stop him from being a mayor. Like, he was totally going to win his second term. I think that's pretty clear, right?
If not for the diagnosis.
Yeah, exactly. We're leading up to the diagnosis, and like obviously before we even get into that stuff, did you know that he arm wrestled the Iron Sheik?
No.
Yeah, like
this was during the era where he had all the celebrities coming in.
Yeah, like I think in the Netflix one, he was with Hulk Hogan, right?
I think it's the Hulk Hogan. There was also Mike Tyson.
Yeah, exactly. But Iron Sheik also went there,
wow.
Which I just thought was awesome. Fuck you, Rob Ford. Like, that would be awesome. But yeah, when it comes to his stomach cancer, like, live fast, die young,
Only the good die young. Live fast, die young.
It's
Rob
like
Ford's
a baby or firework.
Live fast, die young. Rob Ford's do it well.
I feel like MIA with like Rob Ford. I feel like they would match each other's freak in that way,
especially with her weird ass politics these days.
Totally. I feel like they would align politically for sure. And Rob Ford getting cancer was a tragedy, right? But I feel like that was the thing that like lionized him, right? Mm-hmm. Like now he is not seen as, a kind of ineffective policy guy. Mm-hmm. He's not seen as, crack smoking embarrassment.
He's a Shakespearean figure, as someone put it in the documentary.
Yeah, like the Shakespearean thing, that's I would say almost like too flowery, but I would say he's kind of like almost like international representative, like he became like a mascot almost, right? Like we've got Bonhomme de Neige in Quebec to celebrate winter, right? Okay. Rob Ford is, the mascot of crazy politician in Canada. I feel like even Trudeau, right? Like people know who Trudeau is through the name, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like if you were to talk about Canadian politics, Rob Ford is like the most famous Canadian politician. Sure. Would you agree?
Most iconic, yeah.
Right? Like no one would be able to tell you about Sir John A. Macdonald. Would you agree?
I mean, I can't, so yeah.
Do you even know who Sir John A. Macdonald is?
No, sir.
Exactly. So Sir John A. Macdonald was our first ever prime minister. He was our George Washington. And when it comes to like policies, right? He connected a railway from west to east, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, he exploited labor. He exploited immigrant labor through our mistreatment of Asian immigrant workers, right? Then there was Reformation schools in indigenous areas, which are definitely a timely thing that people are talking about more now. And Rob Ford and Sir John A. Macdonald share one key thing, which is that they both were inebriated at the job. They were both raging alcoholics. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I think that I keep coming back to when it comes to like analyzing these Canadian figures is that like people want the mess. They want the person who apologizes for doing the bad thing rather than never doing the bad thing. And I think that it's because there's like this human thing that we gravitate towards to somebody who can show fault and wear that fault on their sleeves. And even if they are not a good person, right? It's that like virtue signaling to being a good person that makes it worthy in the eyes of the voter, right?
Like we'd almost prefer an imperfect person who is honest about their being imperfect and a truly perfect person who's just being honest that they are perfect. We'd rather the flawed person.
But even like the person who's pretending to be perfect eventually lets you down, right? Like nobody is ever truly perfect.
Well,
right?
it was more like an idealized thing. Like this person is perfect, but because they're perfect, they have no shortcomings to admit to. whereas they're not humanized like this flawed individual who, no matter, despite their flaws, at the end of the day, you can relate to them, and if they're willing and able to be honest with you, that's enough for some people.
So let's, like, building off of what you just said there, let's talk about Justin Trudeau, right? Because he embodies that idea of being perfect, right? When he was running for election, right, he was seen as throwing the past in the past, right? Stephen Harper, who was the prime minister during Rob Ford and also during the George W. Bush years, right? He was seen as a wet blanket. He was kind of boring, lame, you know? The fun thing he did on the weekends was that he was a drummer in a cover band, right? PU, you know, lame-o. But Justin Trudeau, right, he sold himself as, like, hip, young, going to change the country in a better direction. He was our hope, right? And when I say hope, I mean that in, like, the Barack Obama hope poster campaign sense. And now the general consensus on Trudeau is that he just kind of sucks, right? And it's because he never really paid out on any of the things he promised beyond, like, the neoliberal, you know, make things a bit better for the top 1%, minor cuts for the labor class, steadily raise taxes, you know the drill, right? And you know, like, Justin Trudeau, the reason that people hate him is because of the insincerity, right? Like, imagine if he were to own the brown face thing, right? They would probably love him.
What
right?
was his,
like Rob Ford?
What was his response to that?
Oh, he went the classy route. He apologized for it. He did the right thing, and that was the wrong move. Which is the reality of not just Canadian politics, but of politics in general, right? The intangible interpersonal thing, the thing that people have been trying to understand in politics for years, how to be likable to people, right? They think it's in being flawless, but the reality is that people prefer this like vice signaling, like doing something, knowing that it's wrong. Exactly. Yeah. It's more powerful to just, like, be an out and about piece of shit who has no remorse about it, right? But with the promise of getting better, which infers that they're listening, without actually ever doing so. That is preferable to then, actually having an approach to making things better, but perhaps through the lens of concessions, which does nothing for anyone. Now, again, Canada is not a two-party system, right? We almost had a chance at a NDP leader in 2011, which is right at the start of when Rob Ford was elected as mayor, which was through Jack Layton. Jack Layton, he was seen as, like, the new Ed Broadbent, who I brought up before with Brian Mulrooney. And he was actually the closest anyone had ever gotten since Broadbent to winning an NDP prime ministership. But unfortunately, he died shortly afterwards, and it stopped the momentum of the NDP party in general in Canada since. We have Jagmeet Singh now, and he's a good guy, but he doesn't do enough to fight for, like, the left side of Canadian politics. So with, like, Trudeau, who was this insincere stooge, as we've discussed, right? He paved the way for Mark Carney, who is now our prime minister, right? Who used to be a banker. We just got our own Trump, pretty much.
Damn.
Through liberals, and not through conservatives.
A more true to form Trump. Than,
right? You're cutting out the middleman, almost, right? You're not getting the businessman. You're getting the guy the businessman gets their loan from.
This is so embarrassing. I didn't even know Trudeau wasn't your prime minister anymore.
Like, he kind of, like, resigned in disgrace. Like, that's the best part, right? Like, he kind of left because nobody liked him anymore.
When did that happen? Oh, this year?
Like,
just this year?
Yeah, like very recently. Recently. Like, it was Justin Trudeau. Like, everyone in the country kind of just stopped liking him for rightful reasons that would require another podcast. But essentially he resigned, and essentially, like, when he did resign, there was, like, a whole fight for the Liberal seat, right? And it was very it was almost presumed that conservatives were going to become the next leaders of the country. And that makes sense, right? Because of the whole Trump thing.
Right.
But why did the conservatives not win? Do you know?
I don't. Is it guessable?
I think so, but I'll just say it.
All right, go ahead.
Like, it's because Trump started attacking Canada. The moment
so
that he started attacking Canada.
Flipped your trajectory.
Well, think about it. The conservatives, they saw themselves as aligned with Trump.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Through their nationalism, they're like, if we're nationalist in the Canadian sense, then we're aligned with Trump. Right? But the problem is that Trump is nationalist to America. Right? And he sees Canada as defunct.
We'll use the West when it's convenient, but ultimately, yeah, it's about us and us alone.
Exactly, right? And so that kind of demolishes everything the conservatives had been planning, which was like assimilation with America, but from like a separate party sense. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So like Doug Ford, who is the premier of Ontario now and was the premier of Ontario like during the start of like Trump, he's a continuation of the Ford legacy, right? Which is this populism. But he also wanted to be like an extension of Trump as well. But now he can't do that because of this whole like nationalism thing that Trump has pushed the conservatives into. And going back to the prime ministership, the reason that the conservatives didn't win is because Pierre Poilievre, the guy who was running for prime minister this go around,
Pierre Poilievre,
he was pretty much. Honestly, he did not have that much swag. He could not
pull it off.
He could not pull off monogamy, let alone polyamory. Not a good enough communicator for either.
Doesn't need enough.
Not good enough. But if your whole platform is we were going to do what America wants, and then America's like, we want to kill you.
Right.
Well, not kill you. No, I shouldn't say kill you, but assimilate, The idea of like
we're going to absorb
any
you,
kind of idea. Yeah, and like that goes against any kind of nationalistic right-wing movement you can have within your party, right? So they essentially lost all of that, and then the liberals, rather than staying true to left, right, they moved to the right, similar to your liberals. And the NDP, because the conservatives were getting so powerful, right, they had made all of these like agreements with the liberals that they would like work jointly on projects, right? Like they would support each other. But because of this, right, they totally shot themselves in the foot. So the left of center party could no longer like have its own momentum. So to kind of give a framework of what Canadian politics looks like right now, like all of the side parties are not as strong. We're slowly moving towards a two-party system. And it's because of this worship of America, I'd say. And it's a fallout of Rob Ford moving us further to the right, generally.
Well, I guess that's sort of what populism has done broadly, is moving the Overton window to the right by almost, I guess
you create like a brand.
Yeah.
And like the Ford brand is itself a brand, separate from cars, obviously. We're talking about the Ford politicians. But when it comes to the Ford political brand, right, like it's synonymous with privatization, moving further into this direction of, a Canada that's profit-driven in that sense, letting the free market go wild, which is antithetical to the way that our country was built, while also, like, not looking good for the future of where things are going. It's just kind of how I feel about Doug Ford and, like, his extension of that, which, again, is just built off of Rob Ford's political legacy. Like, Doug Ford was only able to get to the position that he was because of the name recognition of Rob, which, think about that. Your only way of getting famous is to get famous off of your crackhead brother. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's where we're at politically. One of the most popular and important people in our political realm was popular because of their crack smoking brother.
It's it gets thrown around way too much, but it's very idiocracy.
I feel like Canada's more idiocracy than America because there's the sheen of politeness. We talked before about Rob Ford, there being like some corruption and not fully letting on that there's a problem, right?
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of what it is in Canada as well as in America, right? I feel like there's a lot of things happening every day that are problems, right? In not just these two countries, but in every country, right? It's the little ways that the government tries to encroach on people's rights and the ways that things have run and operated for years and years, whether it be through small budgetary cuts or like massive encroaching things on people's rights. They try to do it in the late of night, in ways that you don't understand, but in ways that are stupid, all nonetheless. And I feel like with Canada, we're kind of sacrificing ourselves almost, We're like almost like the final boss of neoliberalism. Worse than Hillary Clinton,
Oof.
Where it's like we adopted this ideology of free trade at the latest possible moment, and we're holding on to the last strands of it because if we don't, we're done. Now, I will say, hopefully in the future we can get better allies. Like we're hopefully don't work with you guys anymore. If we work with China, we're gravy. We're good. I got to brush up on my Mandarin.
We all do, brother. We're.
I feel like we've moved away from Rob Ford a lot, but I feel like he's somebody who we should immortalize within like a cartoon character.
Yes.
But
I mean,
I feel like. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. There's broader implications or things that are analogous to the Rob Ford situation that it's not bad to sort of extrapolate further out. Like I mean, like with this whole the Overton window, fake populists, they move it to the right, and then at least from what's happening with us, like liberals, the fake populists, they feign to the people, and now it seems like liberals who used to value being populism in a way, or true populism, now are just always making excuses for the status quo. Not now, but I guess that's just more.
They kind of
more,
always have, but it's been more pronounced now.
It's more overt, more pronounced, and then
it's because there's no incentive to hide it anymore.
But then there's also this denial from regular liberal folks that that's not what's happening. That the left is just crazy, and we're not. Liberals are not just diet right.
The problem is for the liberal to admit that there's something wrong with their ideology is to admit that what they've spent, years, maybe even decades supporting was a lie, right? Mm-hmm. And it really is a sunk cost fallacy, right? Where it's like, I've been taught to watch MSNBC every day, right? And that makes me a good person, versus like watching Fox.
Sunken cost, and also it's also like they've created their image of themselves. There's nothing anchoring it. It's just in opposition to something else.
There's this myth that there are like these bad people making things worse for everybody else, right? And the reality is they exist. They're just billionaires,
right?
It's not the secret immigrant who's secretly terrible stealing your tires or whatever, right? Like that doesn't exist. It's like worst case scenario, a statistic improbability at the end of the day, right? When it comes to the things that materially harm everybody, it's like the cost of living and the life expectancy, right? Like it's ways that we can comfortably live now and how long we will live. And the reason that those keep going down every year is because the value of human life keeps going down, right? And it's because people themselves don't see the value in themselves, but also these politicians, they found a way to speak down to people in a way that is endearing. You know, I hesitate to make this comparison, but the joke I was making before about making Rob Ford a cartoon character, they've done it multiple times with other politicians, right? And I relate it to that Black Mirror episode where you've got like that Wall-E character, right? That they've got like an image that you can kind of project as the political idea, right? Versus like running a actual candidate. You've seen this episode?
I don't think so.
So, like, you know, long story short, it's like a cartoon character running instead of a person, right? And it persists throughout decades, right?
Is this Netflix era or BBC era?
This is BBC era.
Okay.
So you know, still good.
Right.
Know, don't worry. Yeah. Still a blunt episode. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it's a good one. But anyways, what I'm getting at there is that Rob Ford, he's the same figure. They just change shape, right? It's like these charismatic snake oil salesmen, they will always exist.
Oh, yeah.
Even if like the timeline is the stupidest possible one, right? And I feel like Rob Ford, he met the stupidest possible timeline. That was him. And he came before Trump because he was ahead of his time. He's like a prog rock musician putting out an album that you know, sets all the genre standards.
Oh yeah. Would you say, because I know we always like to say that, you know, 2016 was when we entered the alternate timeline. For you guys, would it be Rob Ford?
I think that, like, honestly, I would say the alternate timeline started with Stephen Harper. Not because Stephen Harper was particularly terrible, right? But it was like a knowing march into the wrong direction in a banal way, right? Because, like, Rob Ford, he's the celebration. He's like the tailgating the apocalypse, which is what Trump is, right? Like, it's accelerationist behavior to support them. Stephen Harper, it's like the well-reasoned idiot. It's like, oh, well, you know, they'll be good in the long run, but they're not, you know? And Stephen Harper is the architect of undoing a lot of the things that eventually made things worse or are making things worse. I've already talked about some of these characters already, but, you know, people like Jean Chrétien, he put things in place that kept the bankers away from the housing markets, which allowed for us to circumvent the housing market recession in 2008. But Stephen Harper, when he was in office, before Prime Minister, right, he wanted to obviously involve the bankers with the housing market, right? But he lost. Chrétien was able to win that fight, right? But then, who was Prime Minister during the recession? It was Stephen Harper. So he was able to take credit for it. And, you know, then he slowly puts in, like, Bush-era conservatism, you know, like brain drain stuff, more militarization. We got more involved with the Middle East around that time period as well, which, big mistake. Yeah, but anyways, like, long story short, I feel like Canada, there's the Stephen Harper I was saying of, like, you know, alternate timeline, things got worse, you know. We could also say that the timeline got worse for us the moment that we became a free trade nation with America. As I was bringing up at the beginning of this podcast, this idea of us moving away from industrialization. And the fact that everyone is moving back to industrialization now should kind of speak to what I'm saying, right? This idea that countries are no longer self-reliant because of the structures they've made for themselves, and now because of impending climate crises, they're forcing themselves to become isolationist. So I think what we're seeing is, like, Canada moving in slow motion in response to America moving in slow motion, which is in response to China moving in fast motion. China's gonna leave us all in the dust, right? And we deserve it. We do.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because we upheld a lot of stupid international policies that held the world back, as well as, you know, trying to exert some, like, imaginary power that doesn't exist anymore, you know? Like, we really do live within the Adam Curtis documentary world. Like, everything he says is right.
It's one kind of crime to colonize the world in the way we have. It's another kind of crime to do all that and then let it go to shit anyways.
Yeah, and like to party about it.
Yeah,
which is like the arrogance of God, like man, you know, like that's what it is. We're tailgating the apocalypse, and Rob Ford bought the 2-pack.
Yeah.
Do you know what like Doug Ford ran on when he was running for Premier of Ontario?
I do not.
Like the big thing that got him elected, I would argue, right? Like one of the big things that like got him through the door was dollar beers. Like our version of Make America Great Again was this mythic time when you could buy a beer for $1.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug Ford was like, remember when beers were that price? I'm going to make sure that we get beers back to that price. And he got it done, right?
Right.
But he got it done by having like a specific brewery that the government owns a part of.
Oh my God.
That is able to sell beers at that price,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think the price has actually gone up since then, ironically enough. And like the thing is like, you know, who does that serve? That serves like people who are in extreme poverty to buy more beers, to be more reliant, propagating more alcoholism with no services to support them.
And anyone who maybe hopped on the alcoholic train because of the price drop will now, you know, when it inevitably goes back up, are now on the hook for losing even more money.
Oh yeah. Like Canada's whole relationship to alcohol is also just funny in general. Do you this is something you may not know as an American in general, but like, did you know that like in Canada for the longest time you could only buy alcohol from like specific alcohol stores?
No.
Yeah, so you could not go to like a grocery store and buy like alcohol unless it was like wine.
Okay.
You could not go to like a corner store and buy a beer. For the longest time, you had to go to specific stores called the LCBO or the beer store. They were owned by the government, and they were in charge of all alcohol products. But only recently, because of the Fords, they were able to have it so you can buy alcohol from any corner store or from any grocery store. Now, this comes with its ups and downs, right? Because obviously the government doesn't control alcohol, so you can buy alcohol from wherever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then this also creates a more endangered poverty class, right? Because you're easing the access to an addictive property.
Sure.
Would you agree?
Yeah, totally.
And it's like people talk about how it's bad when a more left-leaning politician may talk about like responsible heroin use, right? Like the idea of putting up like centers where people can use needles like fine, like in a respectable manner where you're not like in the middle of the street, right? But then like conservatives will come and they'll trash that, right? And they'll say like you're paying for people to pay drugs, like to do drugs, right? Meanwhile, they're like funding things like this, where it's like being able to access alcohol easier for what? To what end? Like who cares?
Freedom,
like
brother.
who does this help? Really? Like come on. Oh no, I had to walk like a couple extra blocks to go to the LCBO versus going to the grocery store. Like this helps nobody, right? It's these policies that Canada is stuck in, where it's like trying to like emulate America, where it's actually walking backwards. These conveniences that we think that we want, we don't need.
The enshittification of society.
Yeah, sorry for ranting there.
No, it's great. It's what we're doing. Yeah, I mean, no, I completely. I mean, things like that just should be. If we want freedom, but fine. There just should be. It just should be a little bit. If you're gonna, it should be harder. Just why can't it be just a little bit harder? Put a couple obstacles in your way. You might not choose to do it. That's all it is.
Why do you want to play life on easy mode?
Right.
You know?
It's so much. Oh my God! Come on, and this is crackheads. They'll agree. It's about it's about the journey. It's about all the things you have to. It's about the quest. It's about going on quests.
So like, let's imagine the day in the life in a Rob Ford, right?
Okay.
Because like, he must have the most fun life imaginable, right? You wake up, you run to the council meeting. Oh, so boring, right? That sucks. But that's only like what, 3-4 hours, right? What do you do for the rest of your day? You drive around town in your fucking Escalade, right? Stuck in like city traffic, right? To get to the backyards of your constituents where you promise to remove trees.
I'm just imagining Tony Soprano singing "Dirty Work," but it's Rob Ford.
I'm a fool to do your dirty work. Go, yeah. I don't want to do your dirty work no more.
Rob Ford was himself kind of a mobster.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he was just kind of like running around getting shit done, but the shit he was getting done wasn't that important.
And he was kind of like one of those neighborhood guys, you know? Like, he's making sure your mother's okay.
Yeah, he is totally like one of those dudes, right? Where
Paulie.
like he doesn't really have a job, right? But people just kind of pay him to do things,
right?
That's what Ford was, and you know what? There's something pure in that.
Old country. That's how it should be done.
In the civil servant sense, I'm not saying it like a
But no, I mean I think again that's what is so. It's kind of like undeniable, like you say, it might have been just a facade, but that it fooled me. Like you see someone on their feet, just working for the people, no matter how misguided or ill thought out. It did seem genuine, and it the Trump comparisons are there, but at the end of the day, Trump could never even fake the grounded aspects of Rob Ford.
You've used the word liberal to describe Rob Ford a lot.
I have
in this conversation, and I think that like he really was liberal in a lot of ways, right? Like socially speaking, right? And when it comes to like his policies as a conservative like council member, they're like classic like going through the motions kind of thing, right? Like he definitely was somebody who was socially liberal in like a grand sense, where he meant good in like his sense, right? But it was through like his misunderstanding of politics where he did harm.
Right.
It's that I think that's the tragedy, really, more so than like, you know, oh no, he was cut off before he was able to become prime minister, right?
If he was just some guy, just your kid's football coach, he'd be fine.
Exactly. If he was just like the crack smoking guy who coaches this like Catholics team's football, everyone would be okay with him, right? Everyone would love him, right?
Right. As long as he promises to not do it near the boys.
Now, if Rob Ford didn't die, right? Do you think he could have become prime minister?
That I was gonna fucking ask you. I mean,
I think yes.
He does seem like he just kind of has that fly by the seat of your pants luck, and Riz, as we've said.
I think he's kind of like a Jean Chrétien, as I talked about before. You know, like somebody like who has a lot of character, right? And like beyond political aisles, I think that people would have like put aside their differences and just been like, fuck it, let's go with the crack guy.
Oh my God.
Why not?
I just thought of something so funny. You know that video of all the French kids singing to what it was not a prime minister, but he was either like a TV presenter or maybe some sort of politician, but they're all dressed like him. They got cigarettes and whiskey in their hand.
Yeah.
It's that, but a bunch of rotund kids, or they don't have to be rotund. They can dress up, and they got a little crack pipe, and a football, or a joint, or something.
Jamaican patties, you know?
Yes. Oh, it would have to be a reggae song.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They sing "No Woman, No Cry." You know. Like,
oh my God! Give me 1 second.
just realized something, right?
Yeah.
So, like, do you know what Justin Trudeau ran on to win being prime minister?
I do not.
So part of the reason why Justin Trudeau won prime minister was that he promised to legalize weed in Canada, which it's like he did. He successfully got that across, right? Do you imagine how powerful it would be if he ran up against a guy who was promising to legalize crack?
I think that was
Imagine if what?
That was a sketch. Legalize cocaine or legalize crack.
Oh, who did that one?
Oh, man. I think it might be... Why do I want to say... It couldn't have been Whitest Kids You Know.
I would believe that.
Maybe them or like Mad TV.
Oh, classic.
One of the two.
You know what, like, Rob Ford was? He was like the rent is too damn high guy.
The who, the what?
The rent is too damn high guy.
Oh, okay.
You remember that?
Yeah.
He didn't really have much substance to him, right? Like, no one really cared about what his policy was. Right? But he was such a character. And everyone loves a good character. And I think that's what it is, really. They just love him. And like, when he was outed for all of this stuff, they did kind of reduce his powers. You did hear about that, right?
Yep.
Like, he was, like, essentially ineffective. And they were still looking to vote this guy in. Like, how popular do you have to be to, like, know that you're going to vote in a guy who's going to be ineffective?
Oh, so, like, that would have carried over if he had won re-election?
Yeah, if he won re-election, he would have still lost his abilities because of the... Like, how ridiculous is that?
It's pretty wild. I mean, but is it any more wild than re-electing a guy that did an insurrection?
Well, we didn't do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We did that.
We didn't do that.
I'm saying exactly. I'm trying to give you guys some credit.
Yeah, fair. I'm trying to imagine, like, well, honestly, our trucker convoy was the closest to an insurrection we'll get, I imagine. And honestly, like, that was hilarious. It was the worst fucking act of protest ever. Maybe.
I didn't really understand what the fuck was going on with that. Where were they even driving to?
They were driving to Ottawa, right?
Okay.
So, like, because I'm assuming you know nothing about Canada, which I'm not offended. Just putting that out. Just so you know. But so, anyways, Toronto. While Rob Ford was the mayor of the biggest city in Ontario, Ottawa is like the head honcho city of Canada. Like, that's our capital.
Okay.
And all of the convoy guys, they went to Ottawa. They lined the streets of this city. And, like, I know people who live in Ottawa. And you know what? They just hated them.
My family's actually from Ottawa, Illinois.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, right?
I don't know how close they are to Ottawa itself, but I imagine that the honking was obnoxious. That there's a chance that they heard them. that was the number one thing. All of the people who lived in Ottawa, they were like, we don't even, like, the people who even agreed with them politically just got upset with them because they were just like, you're just honking horns and we're trying to live our lives. And you don't have a unified political ideology. Which is the number one problem with January 7th. By the way, January 6th, I should say. January 6th was the dumbest act of fascism ever, where there was no unified political ideology. No one really knew what they were doing. Like, they were the dog chasing, you know, the thing from Dark Knight. They did not know
what to do if you caught it.
To do. Exactly. They got to Nancy Pelosi's office and they just took selfies, right? They said they were going to beat up Nancy Pelosi. They said they were going to do stuff, but
gonna hang Mike Pence and.
No, I don't think they would have done any of that because they're fucking, you know, pussies. You know, like they just wanted to go take pictures. You know, because that, like, we've raised a society of consumers. That's what neoliberalism is, right? And, you know, Canada, similar to America, we only know consumerism now because we no longer industrialize. We no longer make our own things, right? Which, to be fair, can't, like, you know, there is a realm where we could just be consumers. We could keep going with a free trade, right? But they keep on fucking it up anyways with the way that they're acting right now. Just saying, you know, throwing that out there. But yeah, when it comes to, we were talking about, what were we talking about before?
If Rob have been prime minister? Or
yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with Rob Ford being prime minister,
or maybe Trudeau winning on Trudeau running on legalizing weed.
I remember when Trudeau was elected, because I had a lot of friends who worked on the campaign for Trudeau, right? Like, people believed in him, really, truly.
I do kind of remember that,
really would,
his come up.
Like, I really would compare it to Obama.
Yeah.
Like, not like on the same magnitude, because obviously, like, he was only, like, brown when he painted it, you know? Like he was... but, you know, it's... Like, he was somebody who inspired a lot of change. And I remember when he started, there was a website. I wonder if this website exists still. Trudeau Promise Tracker. So there was a website dedicated to, like, his policy promises.
Sure.
And it was seeing if he was following through on them. So let me see this. And it was initially meant as... Oh, it's gone now. They deleted it. So initially it was meant, like, from the Trudeau team. Like, they were, like, saying, yeah, like, how awesome is it that he's doing all of these things, right? But slowly over time, like, he was not doing those things, right? Like, he just kind of became a career politician. And, like, for the American outside perspective, do you know why Justin Trudeau had any kind of, like, name recognition? Do you know anything about that?
He's also someone's kid, right?
So his father was also the prime minister.
Yeah, okay.
He was actually prime minister before Brian Mulroney in the 70s. And one of the reasons why he was famous is because he made the Constitution. The Canadian Constitution was made in the 1970s. How crazy is that to think about?
Damn. Pretty crazy. What the fuck were y'all doing before that?
We were a part of the British Commonwealth.
Right.
We still are very subservient to the royal family.
Yeah. Oh,
Did you know that the royal family has to sign off on all of our laws before they get passed?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, to be fair, it is largely like a symbolic act.
Right.
Like, they're never going to go.
I mean,
like,
just
hey,
as the royal family is a symbolic thing.
Yeah, it doesn't mean jack shit. Come on, get out of there. You know what I mean? Honestly, like, I would respect them more if the royal family just became like a Big Brother style reality TV show. if they just, like, gave up the whole austerity act, you know, and just went, like, full trashy, because that's the only way they can stay relevant in these times. Like, selling your information is the only thing that gets you any value these days.
I mean, the only reason anyone talks about them, at least over here, is because everyone hates Meghan Markle.
Yeah, if you think it's bad in America, imagine what it's like in Canada.
Oh, God,
we talk about we have, like, you know, in grocery stores, how they have, like, People magazine and stuff. We have, like, full magazines dedicated to the royal family.
Jeez,
how crazy is that?
I mean, it's crazy, but let me try and give you guys some credit really quick, because, like, you guys are. You guys didn't fight a revolution to separate yourselves from them. I'll still never forget how long flags were flown at half-mast in this country when the fucking Queen died. Like, I don't understand how. I mean, there's civility, but I don't understand how our whole identity is supposed to basically be about how we hate them and we don't want to be them, and yet we're just as cucked.
I feel like, to speak from the American's perspective, which I know as a Canadian cringe, how dare I?
But you can't help yourself, can you?
Look, I know what's coming. If I don't say it now, okay. So this is what the podcast has really been about. Mm-hmm. This is what we're really boiling down to: is why do Canadians care about American politics? And the reason is because we know it's coming here. So we know that if there's something fucked up that happens in America, and if we don't say anything about it now, then it's going to come here. So
I think you said that on our first recording. Yeah, you're right.
Like, it's, you know, maybe it's stupid optimism that we think that will materially change things, but the record shows that that's the case. You know, like in history, we have just slowly followed your lead, and in the Rob Ford case, we predicted it. And I think that as we go forward, we're only going to continue to move in that direction unless we reindustrialize or we find new partners. And you know, when it comes to the Canadians being too invested in American politics, I agree. But then also you see somebody like Zoran Mamdani and you're like, damn, that guy's got some swag. I want to support him.
Can't fault you for that. But no, I mean, it's a funny meme, you know? Especially, I mean, because like, we've also joked, I mean, you guys have some of our greatest musicians are actually your guys' greatest musicians. Some of our greatest actors are actually your guys' greatest actors. And I mean, you've got nothing on. I care way more about Brits taking American actors' jobs than I care about you guys becoming political pundits.
Well, like I will say to stick up for you guys, right? Like you've got like Lindsey Graham, you've got Ted Cruz, right? Those are Canadians,
right?
Those are not Americans, and you know, I'm sorry. Like, you should be getting better guys. You should be getting our Jean Chrétiens if we're going to export our politicians that way.
If anyone chokeslams anyone, they're getting my vote.
Right? Like, that's a guy of integrity.
Yeah.
He opposed the Iraq War. That's a good
business.
egg.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's still alive. He's 90 years old.
Good Canadian living.
It's the French Canadians. They live real long.
It makes sense. But no, what I was gonna say is like ultimately, like, yes, funny meme, but as you say, you guys follow in our footsteps. Aside from that, I mean, the whole world is affected by what we do.
Yeah.
So I mean,
totally.
it makes sense that everyone would be plugged into our politics, and then of course we're ignorant to everyone else's.
Yeah, and the thing is like, you know, there's been a facade of, you know, doing things for the sake of the greater good for a long time, right? You know, if we're talking about, like, directly with Canada and America, things like NAFTA, you know, which, realistically speaking, they're one-sided in the sense that America is helping out Canada to the point where Canada is becoming reliant on America, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, the reason that we follow you guys is not out of some kind of like hate us because they ain't us kind of inferiority complex.
Right.
It's because like our cash is literally lined up in your cash, and our success is reliant on your success. And right now you're doing a lot of fucking failing, which is worrying, you know. And for me, I love America, you know, from like a personal sense. I love people from America.
Sure.
You know, some of the nicest people I've met are Americans, you know, and you know, people from different states are different, you know, things going on, you know, different perspectives. But at the same time, the general march that's moving is a scary one, and if it's not stopped, you know, it will go to other places. It already is going to other places, and you know, the thing that I was saying before about how Trump targeting our politicians, stopping the conservative election from, you know, the election from going conservative, I should say. Ultimately a good, but it's just kicking the can down the lane. We're going to get our fascist movement in the future, but it's just not a matter of now, it's a matter of when. Sad state of affairs.
Yeah. Just the most pathetic timeline.
Which is like why I would have voted for Rob Ford for prime minister, because I know he would have been the worst fascist. You know, he would not have been. He's like Trump. You know, that's the thing about Trump, right? Is that he really wants to be a fascist, and he knows that he's got the base for it, but they're all too stupid to actually organize. Which is why like January 6th failed. Which is why like they keep failing in the courts. Which is why he got impeached. Which is why he's failing still, you know.
I mean, I think ultimately, you know, fascists are pretty incompetent. I think it's just the bar generally has fallen so far that you're the level of incompetence, the baseline level of incompetence, is way lower than the best, than what the worst for fascism, the worst level of competence was for fascism a century ago.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to go off topic too much, but I feel like it's looming over this conversation, this recent conflict in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any specific thoughts about that? Like obviously Canadian connection, I can make that, but I want to know what your connection is.
Connection to
just like what you
what
think.
we're going to talk about in general, or
just like in general.
I mean, honestly, what's sort of been bugging me the past couple days is back to sort of the the liberals, is this this idea that Kamala would not have done the exact same thing. And she was interviewed as saying, that she views Iran as the number one our number one enemy, our number one obstacle. So to act like not voting for Kamala directly brought about bombing Iran this week is laughable, and I feel like we're just back in 2016 all over again. We're just going to continuously blame the left, never learn our lessons. I mean, not that I want them to, but Democrats will never win again if they can't fucking just own their shit, if they can't listen to their base, if they can't adapt. This moving to the right shit, the election should have proved that this doesn't work, and not only will they refuse to see that, they refuse to see that they even attempted to do that.
It feels like a combination of like old talent, for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's these old people who have just been around for decades,
Mm-hmm.
who will not leave because they have this inferred popularity, right? And then there's this, moneyed interest aspect as well, where you do too much, you rock the boat, you ruin too many moneyed interests, you lose the things that fund your campaign. And it's what stops people from actually doing anything about things that make our lives worse. And, with what's happening in Iran, you're seeing this escalation in the name of another country, which will have, like, World War III. Like, I don't like talking in that, and I don't think it's one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, like, you're destabilizing a nation, and you're saying you're doing it for noble efforts, but then you're linking it back to theology again.
Yeah,
like it's turning into the Iraq
They're
War
the
again,
religious zealots, but we have to protect Israel because God calls us to.
Yeah, and to bring it back to what you're saying about Kamala, it's like there's no indication that she would have been any different
Nope.
on any of this. There's to morally grandstand about some imaginary timeline. It's purposeless. You're not putting forward any change. You're putting forward like vindictive, like it's I told you so, rather than like trying to make things better. And it's not even like the I told you so is true, which is the worst.
No, we should be saying "I told you so."
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, and the thing is like people kind of have.
Yeah,
like
but it
if you
falls
look
on
at
deaf ears.
online, I'd say like we are watching like kind of a shift happen right now.
Yeah,
I'd say at least like I'm pretty optimistic in the sense that like I feel like even like the masses are dejected. Like I talk to people in my daily life,
Mm-hmm.
right, who are conservative, even, right, and I bring up leftist ideas, right,
yeah,
and they really respond to them in comparison to what the liberals are saying. Like if I just openly say what like a socialist ideology is in comparison to what a liberal ideology is, they just eat it up. Even when you talk about like an American figure who's talking about some of these things correctly in the moment, you bring up even a Bernie Sanders type, even though what he says about Israel, take a hike. You know what I mean? But when it comes to like political policy in other regards, in economic
Domestic,
sense, right? People can really get behind that. They can. separate, removed from the brand of Bernie Sanders, right, and separate from the idea of left or right political alignment, it just makes sense to people.
Well, that,
and I think that's what's annoying, is that like liberals don't understand that leftist politics are actually extremely popular.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, that has to do. I feel like that sort of ties back in with like the Rob Ford, populism. Everyone can get behind the idea, even if it doesn't add up, like we said. But everyone can get behind this idea of like, these politicians that make $100,000 a year should not be getting free bus, free zoo, free whatever you have it, free parking, while everyone else is struggling and we're raising the prices on all these things. Everyone can get behind on that. So when you put it, like in this last election, you put it on a referendum, it gets the votes. When you separate it from the parties, from the sports teams, pretty much everyone gets that it's good. You put it behind a person that is tied to a party, everyone's just going to pick their teams. Mm-hmm. Vote against their own interests.
What was Rob Ford doing when he was going to people's backyards and fixing their trees? He was responding to the needs of the people, mm-hmm. in an individualistic sense, right? But also in a selfless sense. In an ideal society, if something is wrong, the society will fix it. And we won't have to worry about how that is fixed. We can continue to live our life happily. And however that means.
As far as I'm concerned...
Financially... Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. No, go ahead. Finish what you were saying. I didn't mean to jump in there.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, as long as if you're walking the walk, if you're on the ground helping people, if you're being that civil servant that Rob believed in being, I don't care what you smoke off the clock.
What I was getting at is that, like, he had the right idea, he just had the wrong methods.
Yes.
He went the privatization route. He went I'm the guy you call to fix things. Mm-hmm. But one mayor can't fix everything. One mayor can't fix everyone's trees in everyone's backyard. He needs the regulation that he keeps cutting. He needs the employees he keeps firing, right? Mm-hmm. All of this creates the realities in which the deficit grows larger, and he needs to plug holes. And the holes he keeps plugging are the things that keep on ruining the lives of the people around them. So we've talked about this idea of, like, positing yourself as the good person. We move to this leftist ideology again, where he had the right idea of moving in something that serves the needs of the people, but he did it in a way that was inefficient. And that inefficiency is at the root of not just neoliberalism, but conservatism as well, which, while they try to strive for efficiency, they end up just harming not just the bottom lines of the people that they're trying to aid, but the lives of the people trying to exist within the systems they've constructed.
Couldn't have said it better myself, sir.
Blammo. Kazing.
Bazinga.
Boom ya. Boom shakalaka.
Rolo, Tony, Browntown. Check yourself at the door. Give me some more. Give me some more. Give me some more on your Rolos.
All right, we're going to wrap it up there on that perfect note, thanks to the eloquent poor old Rolo Tony. Thank you for taking me on this illustrious journey through the history of Rob Ford. We had another 2 hours of conversation, more Canadian-American politics, a couple more anecdotes about Rob, a couple more anecdotes about Justin Trudeau, talked about a couple movies, a lot of shit talk about Drake. It was pretty fun, much more loose. That is going to be going up as a bonus episode on the main feed Tuesday or Wednesday this week. You can catch the full 4-hour episode on Patreon the moment you hear this message. Patreon.com/TVPPOD. That's patreon.com/TVPpod. Thank you once again to my guest, Rolo Tony. You can catch his musings on Twitter at Poor Old Rolo Tony, or you can catch his reviews of movies on Letterboxd at Poor Old Rolo Tony. Thank you once again, Poor Old Rolo Tony. Rolo Tony Browntown. Rolo Tony Browntown. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you midweek. Or next week if you listen on Patreon and you don't listen to the bonus edition. You just listen to the whole thing on Patreon. Then we'll see you next Friday. Otherwise, see you Tuesday or Wednesday.
You know you've got to give us some more of those Rolos. 77 WTV.